This is the final module for EDL Course 856. It is a case study called Parental Apathy. These are the standards chosen for this module. The standards address candidates' understanding and making decisions that have potential moral and legal implications. Candidates must also keep up to date regarding technology to anticipate and prevent potential school problems. In this case study, Mrs. Wilson is the new principal, the role the administrator candidate will see themselves in, and Mrs. Horton is the good teacher who displays some bad behaviors. The cause of these bad behaviors is hearsay at best. Nevertheless, the new principal, Mrs. Wilson, must handle the subsequent problems. There are parent complaints, and Mrs. Horton, during a meeting with the parent and principal, lashes out and slams her fist on the table and yells. Category 1, Problem Identification and Analysis. Part A, What is known? Congratulations are in order. Mrs. Wilson is the new principal at a small and successful elementary school. After her first 3 years, she begins to notice some changes in one of her best first-grade teachers and prior teacher of the year, Mrs. Horton. She is less friendly and combative with other teachers. She does not support the new reading program and even berates other teachers who do support the program. Parent phone calls detail verbal abuse towards the children. The superintendent and board members are aware of complaints, and several would like their children removed from Mrs. Horton's class. A parent then requests a parent-teacher meeting with the principal present to have his daughter removed. The principal hosts this meeting, and when the parent levels an accusation, Mrs. Horton shouts, "You're a liar!" and pounds her fist on the desk. Mrs. Wilson immediately ends the meeting and assures the parents she will give the parent's request to remove the child her full attention. When Miss Wilson, the principal, turns to face Mrs. Horton, the teacher, she is still angry and her posture is defensive. What now? Or more accurately, what should have happened prior to this meeting? It seems this potentially legal issue needed to be handled a bit earlier. Part B, Necessary Information. These are the important facts that will drive Mrs. Wilson to solve her dilemma. Mrs. Horton is increasingly unpleasant. There is scuttle that Mrs. Horton is suffering from marital issues. The superintendent calls to inform principal that there are phone calls from the parents complaining they want their children removed from Mrs. Horton's class due to verbal abuse. There is now an outburst of witness unprofessional behavior from Mrs. Horton. What will the principal do? From here on, throughout the remainder of this slide presentation, I will pretend to be Mrs. Wilson, a relatively new principal, who feels passionate about preventing the situation from spiraling out of control. I am now channeling Mrs. Wilson. What will I do? Part C, Problems Identified. The problems I face are these. Mrs. Horton is not currently as professional as her prior Teacher of the Year award would imply. She is frequently tardy, a little less friendly, and is receiving complaints and allegations that include being verbally abusive. I have assured the superintendent that I will look into these allegations, but have found nothing through my recent and regular observations. I set up a teacher-parent conference to address parent requesting the removal of his child out of Mrs. Horton's class. During the meeting, Mrs. Horton shouts and pounds her fist on the table. I must support Mrs. Horton to help her with her change of job performance. I must investigate all allegations of verbal abuse and do this without undermining or jeopardizing Mrs. Horton's teaching authority. The truth is, I have let the situation go too far. I will have to go back in time to when I first noticed the changes in Mrs. Horton. Less friendly and berating other teachers. I'm going to have to go back in time to when I first hear that Mrs. Horton's husband may have moved out and she may be raising 2 teenagers on her own. I'll have to rewind time before the parent-teacher meeting where Mrs. Horton shouted, "That's a lie!" and slammed her fist on the table. I must problem solve before these incidences stack up and become possible legal issues. Luckily, with case studies, this type of time travel is possible. A journey of miles begins with a single step. Category 2, Proposed Plan of Action. Best practices dictate empathy. Teachers handle daily stress. It will be important to have a sympathetic ear. Sometimes home or private life overlap with professional life, and people may need assistance to manage emotions and professional responsibilities. I must fulfill my duty to Mrs. Horton and provide her with the relative information and resources to help her be successful in her job. I will meet with Mrs. Horton and begin the Oreo cookie method I learned from FHSU. First, I will converse with her regarding what I see that she does well as a teacher. If she is amiable, I'd have her describe to me something she feels she does well. I will then invite a discussion as to the changes in her demeanor. I will listen and offer empathy. If possible, I'd have her describe to me something or some things she feels could be improved. Lastly, I will describe what is considered a positive quality, in this case, her courage, her ability to stand up for what is right. You see, even though Mrs. Horton has been fighting with other teachers, she is not afraid to let her feelings be known. I will also follow up several times and monitor her professional behaviors. I must also investigate the parent complaints thoroughly and reassure the parents that their children are in the safest place to learn. I must also communicate expectations regarding parent-teacher meetings and punctuality. This will be initially done whole staff. If Mrs. Horton's tardies do not improve, then I will address that personally with her with possible disciplinary action. Category 3, resolve the issue. Resolving the issue will begin with having a trusted relationship with my staff. This takes time to build, but the wait will pay off in dividends later. This includes setting expectations for timeliness, mandatory parent-teacher conferences, and setting the tone for being available to talk should something arise in the personal lives of my staff and they need assistance. Resolving the issues also includes investigating these claims as to their validity and frequency. Parent contact, student interviews, peer-teacher interviews, and conversations with Mrs. Horton will be mandatory. Data from the case includes verbal abuse, including screaming, parent complaints to Board of Education, and one parent who demanded his daughter be removed from Mrs. Horton's class. What is best for students, what is ideal for students, and what is appropriate for students is having a safe place to learn. In fact, most state legal statutes support safe learning environments. Since we are in the business of education, and student safety includes physical, emotional, and mental safety, it is our duty to ensure this safety above all. Students may only learn in safe environments. Category 4, reflection. Important to any educator's growth is an honest reflection regarding actions and ideas. Self-reflection is an educator's most valuable developmental tool. During this case, it became very clear that this situation had been allowed to go on for too long without any intervention. Mrs. Horton was in distress. Her ability to do her job had been compromised, and she clearly needed support. For me, these early warning signs are a true sign to take initial action so that events do not unfold in such a volatile fashion. Lastly, when Mrs. Horton began berating other teachers regarding the new reading program, her unprofessional behavior should have been addressed to whole staff before it even happened. For example, during the staff meeting introducing the proposed reading program, staff should have been reminded to remain professional despite any disagreements they may have had. The staff should also have been given a voice in the decision to adopt the reading program, and the staff should have been reminded again after adopting the program that input would be collected and the program reevaluated at the end of the year. As an administrator, such input as to the positives and negatives of any program would be welcome. Category 5, reflect on Standard 2. As an educational leadership candidate yourself, you may already know this standard, but pretend we're in guided reading groups and read this together. Come on, you must say this out loud in front of your computer with me on 3. 1, 2, 3. Standard 2, instructional capacity. An educational leader promotes the academic success and personal well-being of every student by enhancing instructional capacity. Well done. Component 1. Promote academic success as it relates to Standard 2. Academic success begins with each and every child. Early in the year and during staff meetings, one of the things I will do is to provide clear expectations to the whole teaching staff regarding parent-teacher conferences. This assures that each family is provided an opportunity to speak with their child's teacher regarding the educational successes of their child. Another topic that must be addressed is punctuality. By setting an expectation of arriving on time to the entire staff, I have laid the groundwork that those expectations be followed. Generally speaking, any staff meeting should include support from the administrator. A good administrator lets staff know they are available to assist in any way should a problems, professional or personal, arise. Just as the students rely on the teacher must be able to rely upon the administrator. Component 2. Promote personal well-being of every student as it relates to Standard 2. By setting a standard for expected parent-teacher conferences, the administrator sets the climate and tone for the teaching staff. Well-being begins when parents tell us about their children's needs. During parent-teacher conferences, the parents immediately connect with the idea that they, the parents, and schools working together are a powerful combination. Together we discuss and begin to problem solve through issues like safety, tolerance, and acceptance that affect our students more so today, possibly than ever before in our educational history. Component 3. Enhance instructional capacity as it relates to Standard 2. The way I plan to enhance instructional capacity is to hold regular staff meetings with organization, clear goals, and efficiency. It will foster our educational family to develop high standards. It will assure a commitment of meeting with students and their parents as part of a community built upon improving instructional excellence. These meetings will be Lao Tzu's first step to engage my educational community. The citations included in the syllabus from this course and embedded in the syllabus is the case study. This concludes my presentation. Thank you kindly for listening.